Hello everyone, my name is Dave Barton. I'm the Mayor of the Township of Uxbridge, and it's September the 3rd. And there seems to be a lot of hot topics on the agenda right now, lots of issues. And I actually asked Colleen Baskin, who's in our communications department, to put together some questions. I don't know what they are. I think I know approximately what the topics are going to be, but I wanted to just ask anything she thinks the public are interested in, from her watching social media and listening to phone calls coming into the office. We want to make sure you hear what's going on directly from me. So, Colleen, do you want to go ahead?
Local families are asking why council's decided to postpone opening the arena. Lots of other municipalities are opening. This could jeopardize the North Durham hockey season. So why are we not opening?
Right, so there's a lot of moving parts taking place right now in September. We have schools getting started. We have busing, everything else that's happening from a student perspective. We have been in a very, very tough situation from a financial situation when it comes to the town. And we thought time would be our friend on this. We found that additional time with most of the decisions that we made during COVID were helpful. And this is another example of that. So unfortunately, there's been some communication from, whether it's internally from the township or from the different groups that use the facility, that the arena was definitely opening on September 15th. That wasn't the intent of council. We had a report that gave us the option to reopen, and we decided to delay that by a month and a couple days so we could make a more informed decision.
You're opening the pool, however. Does the same criteria not apply?
So it did. It was a very similar decision when we opened the pool. We made that decision a few weeks ago. And there's a big difference though between the pool and the arena. In order to put the ice in, it's 2 weeks of cooling the arena down, getting the ice surface ready, turning on the compressors. There's lots of hard work to get the ice in. If we change our mind and have to close, it's a solid week of work to take the ice out. With the pool has been basically ready to go. We got it ready for COVID. We put the shielding in place, put in our processes. All we really had to do is increase the temperature so it wasn't below 70 degrees anymore, so that people could start using it again. It's a much simpler process, and we didn't actually open the pool forever. What we've done is we're doing a trial. It was the will of council to open the pool, see how the numbers look, try it out for just over a month, and then assess what the financials look like, find out from the residents what the experience is like, to know if that's a long-term solution or if that we need to pivot.
So will council reconsider opening the arena, and how likely would you say that it will be open?
So again, everything's I'm 1 vote out of 7 on council, so I'm just one small piece of it. We are looking at the numbers again and the entire situation on October the 5th, and that's going to be an important day because we're looking at how things are going with the pool. We're going to get a very good snapshot of where we're running from a financial situation overall with the pandemic, and then we are also going to be looking at the arena reopening and having better numbers, more information on how this is all going to work. The other piece of this, when we were looking at the arena reopening, the numbers were changing pretty quickly because of groups that were in or groups that were out. And because of the uncertainty with how it was going to look, we did pivot. Now I'm going to shift one more again. Because we are so closely linked with SCUGOG from a hockey perspective, most Uxbridge kids play in both Port Perry and Uxbridge. We thought this would be a soft opening for the hockey season. Again, it may not work out that way, but the thoughts from council, certainly the voices around the room, and I'll attach the link to our meeting when we discuss this, because again, I'm only one person. But we thought this would allow kids that might normally be on the ice 2 or 3 times a week, be on the ice 1 or 2 times a week, so that they could ease into it for a month, and then we could do the full reopening as long as everything was going as to plan.
Staying on the finances, lots of members of the pool are asking why they have to pay a per user rate rather than using the membership money they've already paid, and they feel that having already paid the membership money, it's unfair to ask for additional funds from them.
Okay, so I could be incorrect on this, but I believe that at any point, if you want to cancel your membership, we will return your money. That's number one. And Colleen's nodding, so I think that means I'm telling the truth. The other thing is, because we have such limited capacity in the pool right now, we don't have unlimited capacity. So if we allowed people to use their memberships and they couldn't get in, that put us in a tough situation. We've then sold a membership with unlimited usage that people might not be able to use. We thought the most fair way to do it was to make it pay per use until things are back to normal, and then we would keep the memberships flowing. And again, this affects my family as well. My wife has a membership for the pool, so it is something that when she uses it, it also would affect her and my family. So we thought it was the most fair way to do it, to pay for a pay per use instead of a blanket with capacity that was very uncertain.
Staying on the finance themes, what is the impact of COVID-19 on the township budget? What is it going to do to our taxes next year? And are there services that we may not see resume or that might get cut even further?
So that's a great question, and it's a complicated one. So from a financial situation, we've been running numbers since the pandemic began. At times, we've been looking at a deficit of about $70,000, but it does not take into consideration the amount of money we've spent to prepare for COVID. So we had to move to virtual offices, we had to purchase laptops, software, cloud-based computing. There's been a lot of costs that we've incurred that are capital, that are COVID related, but from an operating standpoint, we think it's 70, but we will get updated numbers on October the 5th. And that's, again, why it was difficult to make such an important financial decision that once we made, we really couldn't turn back. Because you turn on the ice, takes a couple weeks, you get things rolling. It's hard to shut it down because you have so much invested in turning it on. So I hope I answered that to your satisfaction.
Just any comments about for future services that might be up for consideration of canceling or changing or reinstating even?
Okay, so we want the world to get back to normal in every way possible. So anything that we can run in a cost-effective way, we did right away. Let me step back. Anything we can run safely in a cost-effective way, we did right away. So the day we were allowed to turn on our playgrounds again, we pulled down the tape and they were turned back on. The day we could turn on the skate park again, we did. We never shut down our trails. So we tried to make things as normal as they could possibly be as long as we could afford it. Things like the library that we're running the majority of the, anyone who wants a book can go and pick one up, but you can't just pick it out yourself. So you have to do it online, and it's curbside pickup. Or you have to step in the front door to pick it up. So we've tried to provide all the same services without, while limiting any possibility for health risks for our staff and especially the public.
Okay, so let's pivot to construction for a minute because there's a lot of construction, and let's stay on the costing piece. We recently announced that the culvert costs continue to climb. We've received accusations that the project hasn't been well managed. Is the project on schedule, and how much over budget is it?
Okay, so I don't have my figures in front of me, but the numbers have changed all the way along. So let's start at the very beginning. Earlier councils than mine pegged the cost of this culvert project at $10 million. And that was a number that there wasn't a lot of information to build that number. It was sort of an early assessment. Once the project was closer to being fully costed, it was $17.8 million. And that's what the number, as I was campaigning, that's the number that we had to work with at that point. Almost immediately, once I stepped into office, that number was $22.8 million. Again, I'm running off memory here. 22.8 or 23.2. Anyway, very close to that $23 million mark. And we've been running with that number up until about a month ago. Our latest costing has it a couple $1 million higher than that. There's a bunch of reasons for that. $3 million out of that is the land that we had to acquire. So again, when I stepped into this office, we didn't own the land that we had already issued contracts on, that we needed to run the project through. There was some contamination in that land. We've had some settlement issues with that Coffee Time building. And again, this is a very complicated project. We're diverting a river, running underneath buildings in an old downtown when it's hard to really know what you're into in terms of what the ground conditions look like until you're deep into it. So lots of moving parts, but that's approximately where we are. And then I think you were also, earlier in questions, you asked about taxes.
Yeah.
So from a COVID perspective, there's a lot of different ways we could manage things. We could cut operating costs, which is the day-to-day, it's things like hydro and staffing costs, or we could cut capital projects. We, in this council right now, think of capital like we do our savings account. So when we pave a road, it's good for 10, 20, 30 years. And we didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize those capital projects, so we kept those running. You'll notice that we had construction projects all over the place. Planks Lane, that's almost complete. We paved Wag Road, we paved parts of the 3rd, we paved the 6th, and then a number of other big capital projects, plus the culvert. We didn't put any of those on hold like other municipalities did. Instead, we cut our operating costs. We cut staffing that we weren't using effectively. We cut staffing that we really needed. Things like bylaw we cut as well. And it was all about trying to get as close to a $0 deficit as possible, and that's how we got here. Did I answer all bits of that question?
Is there going to be an impact on future taxpayers because of the culvert going over budget?
Oh, so we are, we've done a debenture for the overages on the culvert that will be spread over many years. So yes, every dollar we spend on the culvert will be paid back by taxpayers, but we're spreading that cost over the long term. We are also revitalizing the downtown, and we will be reselling some of the properties that we own there. So in the end, it shouldn't be as bad as it looks today right now. And then the ultimate goal is to keep our taxes as low as they can while maintaining our infrastructure. And we all know in our own personal finances, you don't save any money by not shingling your roof when it needs to be done. And that's the approach we take to everything. So we want to keep up all the assets that we have in the town, the roads, the buildings, everything else, and we are not sacrificing that due to the pandemic. We're instead trying to limit the services temporarily so we don't all have to pay for it long term.
So the culvert project's still on track. When do you expect the road to be reopened?
We expect the road to be opened. We don't have an absolute date yet, but it's probably mid-October, and then the project should be complete by the end of 2020. There will be some small paving, landscaping work to be done after that you can't do when it's cold, but the big equipment, the big parts of this project are scheduled to be complete by the end of 2020.
And you're just announced that we've closed Centennial Drive starting Tuesday. Was that wise to close it at the same time as Brock Street, especially when kids are going back to school? Why did you do that when you thought you wouldn't have to?
So many times we've dealt with delays on this project all the way through, and there's delays due to weather, there's delays due to engineering changes, things like that. When we have our contractor or our project manager come to us with ideas on ways to save time, we look at those very, very carefully to do whatever we can to make this project get finished a little bit sooner, and that's part of it. So we talk to all of our staff members here, we talk to residents, and especially our fire department, on whether or not we could keep things rolling and close both roads at the same time. It's saving us a significant amount of time that will hopefully get us complete ahead of the end of 2020, like I mentioned before.
Is there anything being done to help local businesses?
So like impacted by construction, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Or
yes.
closures?
Yeah, so we've provided some communications around, what, where to park, how to park. Our BIA is working diligently to try and drum up business downtown. There's some amazing videos that we'll put together by our tourism team, Central Counties, and the Durham Region tourism groups. We're encouraging people from our trail systems to get into Uxbridge to spend money. So we're doing a whole bunch of things to try and drum up additional business downtown. And again, we certainly feel for our downtown businesses. It's been a tough situation to deal with COVID. This construction is not helping, but we feel the best way to help these businesses is to get out of the way as quickly as we possibly can.
Let's pivot to a different topic. There's lots of people using our skate park and our pump park. We hear concerns all the time about having more than 100 people there. What is the township doing about enforcing COVID regulations?
Okay, so the pump park, skate park is an open area. We have no events taking place there. It's regular usage. We decided fairly early on in the pandemic to allow our open spaces to be open and to not put staff at every public access point, just from a dollars and cents point and everything else. We've spoken to medical professionals, we've talked to public health about the risks of COVID in an open air environment like that, where things like cigarettes, things like that are not being shared. And we've been pretty comfortable with that right now. Like everything else COVID related, we're watching our numbers on a day-to-day basis. And if we find out that the decisions that we're making put public health at risk, we will pivot and change things very, very quickly. The other thing to keep in mind, when you're driving by that area, you stop on the road and look in, it doesn't do it justice on how much space is really there. It looks like people are right on top of each other. It's not as bad as you think. And again, we are trying to allow our public to make their own public health decisions when possible. And we are also encouraging people to get exercise. It's great for mental health, it's great for physical health, and things like trail systems and skate parks are important for our kids so that life feels a little bit more back to normal, to try and deal with some of the mental health challenges that we've certainly heard about over the last number of months.
How do you respond to criticisms that it's very dangerous to walk out there or for kids to cross the street because of the speed of the traffic on the road?
So this has been an ongoing topic of discussion in our council chambers and around this office. We have a group of councillors that are working on traffic safety constantly, and one important thing that they've done is we put together a resolution, all of council, asking for crosswalks in about, I think it's 5 different locations throughout the town. We've asked for reduced speed limits on the regional roads and traffic calming measures on those same roads. So we're working towards it. This is something, because we're on regional roads, we can't do alone. I met with Regional Public Works to discuss this topic actually at the skate park last week or the week before, and we're hoping for some significant changes moving forward to make it even safer to get from A to B, especially when people are not using shared transportation the way they maybe did in the past.
Question about Elgin Park Drive. A developer was allowed to cut down trees right beside the trail in the Countryside Preserve. What are your comments on that?
So I'd have to go back a few months on when this was discussed, but the trail is actually on the developer's property. This is a development that was set, it's within the urban boundary. It was permitted to be a development quite a long time ago. This was approved under the old council, and in order to put houses on that property, the trees had to be removed. The other interesting piece of this, the developer has to pay to have those trees put somewhere else. So I'm hoping it's going to be done this fall. I haven't heard an update in the last couple of weeks, but those trees are going to be replanted on municipal property at the Fields of Uxbridge, so that forever those trees will be in a safe home under municipal control.
Final question is, the township appears to be considering allowing more gravel pits or bringing in fill into gravel pits. This is the Oak Ridges Moraine. People are really struggling understanding why something that seems environmentally irresponsible would be allowed on sensitive lands. Also, there's so many gravel trucks, do we really need more?
Okay, so let's take that in steps. Let's start with new gravel pits. So there's something called the Aggregate Resources Act. It's managed by the province, and aggregate is a resource that fuels growth. So anytime you've got a road that's built, a house, a renovation, almost anything uses aggregate. Aggregate is gravel and it's sand, which includes asphalt and concrete. So the Aggregate Resources Act legislates how safely to remove gravel from the earth, and the idea is it has to be removed as close to where it's going to be used as possible. We live in the best community. We've got amazing natural resources all around us. One of the negativities with living in the Oak Ridges Moraine is the glaciers dumped incredible aggregate in our backyard. That aggregate, again, according to provincial legislation, needs to be able to be removed, taken to where it needs to be used, and then covered back up with earth so that land becomes viable once again. That's the reality that we face. So then it's all about managing those applications as they come through. If you pay any attention to what we do when it comes to gravel, it's all about making it as minimally as invasive as possible. So it's about putting berms up, trees, protecting the water, protecting the earth and the wildlife as much as we possibly can for the period of time that gravel will be extracted. We're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 years, not 6 months to remove this kind of gravel. And then the way to get gravel out of the earth is to take it, grind it up, and then put it in trucks and haul it to where it's going to be used. It's something we have to deal with. It's about trying to make things as safe as possible as this gravel is moving through our municipality. Now, fill is a whole different animal. Fill is the byproduct of large construction projects, whether or not they're housing developments or condos or office buildings or any, if we get grants to build a new pool or anything like that, there will be fill. The fill has to go somewhere. It's put into tables. Table 1 is basically farmland that's never been close to a road. Table 2 has different amounts of contaminants in it. There's been a fill bylaw in this municipality for a long time. We will allow things like Table 1 fill to be brought in to certain sites. There's very, very tight restrictions. Under my tenure, we approved one fill operation, which is on the 4th concession, close to in a CRH pit, and that brought in $400,000+ into our municipal pockets in terms of aggregates, sand for winter maintenance, and we are allowing Table 1 fill plus exceedances for sodium. We've talked to every expert we can about whether or not that puts us at risk, and everybody says it doesn't. So that's where we're at from fill. Each one of these questions I could have talked about for an hour. So now the one thing we